everyone, welcome back to another video. Um, so first and foremost, we're going to be discussing a little bit of the Bungie things that are happening, some reasons that I think this is happening, but also some reasons why Sony may not be the best leadership option here. Also, I will be talking about future plans for the channel and whatnot, because I do have some stuff working on. Also, some Bloodborne news, because, well, Bloodborne adjacent news has come out, so I'm going to cover a lot of stuff here. So I'm going to assume that y'all read the article. A lot of YouTubers have fucking covered it, so I'm not gonna bother. I'll let the other content creators do that. However, I'm going to be delving into some stuff, so comparisons that people might not be looking at. So that is something that I'm going to be discussing here. As you can see, I have 3 tabs open. Don't worry, we will be getting into why these tabs exist here. Also, for this first part of the video, I'm going to be discussing mostly about what I'm seeing for the backgrounds and everything. But also, later on, I will be discussing a little bit more of Sony's things and my dealios and that sort of deal. But a lot of that stuff is going to be reserved for when I have background gameplay. Now, in case I don't know, a lot of people at Bungie unfortunately got laid off. It is quite unfortunate here. I do hope that people can find other jobs. I really do hope so. That being, I will say though, just Bungie as a studio has a massive problem of basically sticking to one genre, that being FPSs. And yes, that can work for some studios, but when you only really have one game, it's kind of like yikes. And Bungie has always been hemorrhaging money. Bungie just hemorrhages money. That's why Activision and them split. A lot of people do not want to acknowledge this, but Bungie has always been really dog water at managing money. Whether or not that's on Pete Parsons or upper management. Um, I'm not really going to get into that whole dealy dallo, alright? Now, here's the deal. Here's the deal here. When Sony bought Bungie, I think Sony looked at Bungie and was like, okay, there's some potential here. And they have acknowledged that Destiny is a golden goose egg. I'm going to say this right now. It used to be a golden goose egg. Destiny is no. I completely disagree that it has no competitors. It does. That being said, does it have lasting competitors is the real question. And I think it's going to start getting shoved into the foreground for some other reasons. So, first and foremost, I think when Sony looked at Bungie, they knew they did not want to make the same mistake Activision did, and were like, "Hey, if y'all keep hemorrhaging money, we're gonna take over, and we're gonna, you're gonna come join the PlayStation family." I'll explain why that might not be good for us as a consumer in a bit, especially in terms of fucking quality, but we'll get there when we get there. Now, I want to talk about some of the background stuff here. Now, the player stats over the 7 days isn't useful for us. Month, you can see Destiny 2 is pretty damn steady. 3 months is where you can see the problem. 3 months is where you can see the problem. If we go to, 1 year, which is really where it's going to kind of show, okay? All time is, like, not going to help us. But if we want to look at 1 year, right? As we can see, things have been in a stable state. When was this? August? I don't remember really what happened in August. But as you can see, decently stable spike in final shape. But steep decline back to where we were. Want to look at 6 months? You can see it here. We were damn rock fucking bottom. 74K, and then you can see we're actually even lower than where we were here. I believe February 29th was just before Into the Light, because I'm guessing this section was Into the Light. Yeah, this section was Into the Light. So before Into the Light, we are lower than where we were then. Can I, will it let me, how far will it back? So currently, we're at about 66 to 65 at around 70. When was the last time we were there? Around March. That's bad. That is bad. You had Final Shape, then you had the dip, and in the past month, obviously, you can see, spikes at different times or whatever, but that doesn't matter. This 3 month period matters the most. Because in all actuality, Final Shape is not a success. It is not a success in its entirety. Bungie has a massive issue with player retention. Bungie has a massive issue with retaining players. And it lost a lot of players. A lot of players are just done with the game. Not just me personally, but I mean, Bungie, back when Destiny 2 was kind of around there, it was kind of, I would say, since the year 2020, there hasn't really been that many games to compete Destiny 2 for your time. There just hasn't been. Because like 2020 was a decent year. Ghost of Tsushima came out, which not a super ton of people played. You had Doom Eternal, which would have probably pulled some people from Destiny 2, but not a massive year for gaming. 2021, same thing. 2022, sort of similar situation, but 2023 kind of started because you had Atomic Heart, but I'm not really counting Atomic Heart. You had Remnant 2. Remnant 2 was massive. Remnant 2, in my opinion, is a very, very good game. Heavily recommended. Both DLCs are pretty damn good. But you had Remnant 2, and this year alone, we've had the Elden Ring DLC. We've had First Ascendant, which so far was like looking solid. And yes, we will be taking a look at that. It's Steam Play Charts. And again, this is not representative of all platforms, but pretty this is pretty telling of, it's pretty telling for, the other consoles as well. But I mean, we started to have an uptick in a decent amount of good games, right? That compete for your time. And also, as we'll get into later, we've had a pretty substantial rise in gotcha games, which are a time sink in and of themselves. I mean, you have Genshin Impact or whatever, which has been declining in player retention rate for a massively long time. I would argue that Genshin currently in its current state is doing worse than Destiny 2 in terms of player retention rate. Genshin community does not want to recognize it, but if you look at some of the previous year's stats, they still have not reached the monetarily wise, they've been doing good. But from in terms of player counts and that sort of thing, they have yet to do as well in a year since their release. And I'm meaning it's quite bad. But, they've had spikes and everything, so that's whatever. And of course, you had Tower Fantasy that recently came to PlayStation last year, which I guess is probably doing well. I don't know. And of course, you had Hawkeye Star Rail. Then you had Zenless Zenith Zero, which I've kind of messed around with Zenless a little bit. It's a little bit interesting. I might cover that game in a separate doodad because of its combat is sort of reminiscent of Souls likes, but we'll get there when we get there, which will be probably never. But we've have a lot of games now that compete for your time. How does Destiny 2 compete for your time? As a newer player, it's kind of rough to get into. As a older veteran, there's no loot to grind for. There just isn't. Me, I consider myself to I would probably be considered to be a veteran at this point. I would consider myself to be an experienced player. I have the second rarest raid title. Again, I will not stress enough how Godslayer is the second most common raid title. Iconoclast is very rare now. Respect the Iconoclast. I don't have it personally, nor do I plan on get it, but Iconoclast people, I respect you uh, from one raider to another. But when you have all of the raid loot, Destiny exotics have become so fucking prevalent. You don't get that sense of, oh, I got the exotic, When I remember back when, you know, Deepstone Crypt had first came out, and I started running it when, Vault of Glass came out, and I was so happy to get that Eyes of Tomorrow on my 39th run, that Vex Mythoclast on my 42nd run. It was just a rush, and I think that loot chase has kind of disappeared, and legendary weapons are so good and even arguably outright better than exotics, and it's like, what's the fucking point of exotics now? They're so common and shit. Exotic armor is so common now, and it's like we don't have any super rare pieces of loot to chase after. And in terms of fashion, we have to wait. We honestly have to wait a while for Dungeons and Raids to come out, and if that raid or dungeon armor doesn't fit your personal taste, you have to wait ages for an armor set to pop up for you to, grab. And if you already have Artifice armor from a long time ago, like I do, there's no point in running Master Dungeons besides getting the Catalyst. Sometimes, some dungeons you have to do Master to get the Catalyst. Some others you don't. So it's like there's nothing for me to grind up to do. you know? And I've taught so many raids at this point where it's like, I don't know, is that something I want to keep doing? That's something I want to keep doing, or do I want to actually kind of get my learning experience through playing through other games? Like First Ascendant, my learning process. So that's something that I have to point out. There's no loot chasers. Destiny is missing that magic it once had when I first started playing it. Legendary loot is too powerful. Build crafting is great. I personally do believe currently in its state in terms of mixing and matching exotic armor pieces, all that stuff. I do think we're in probably a better state than we were when, back in the old days of wells of light and powerful orbs or whatever, masterworking your weapons to generate orbs. Back in those old ancient days, the Warmind Cell stuff. But I think we're in a better state. But again, it doesn't solve these issues. And Final Shape suffers massively from, like, nothing has happened with Final Shape. Like, nothing has happened in the Pale Heart. No major secrets. No nothing. We have had nothing to the scale of, like Prophecy, Finding the Wishing Wall, Last Wish, Forsaken. That's something I massively respect Forsaken for, and I do wish I would have been playing during that time. But no expansion since then has really had that. Even I would say Beyond Light did at least kind of attempted this, not really with the puzzle elements, but you had the Lament quest, which if you were there when you first got it, holy shit, did it take ages. Then you had your simulation activities. You had a bunch of stuff to do. And in Final Shape, once you have your exotic class item, once you beat the campaign, you're pretty much done. There's no like real like necessary secrets to find unless you're going for the title and everything. It's kind of disappointing. And you can kind of see here what keeps a live service game alive. It's player retention. Keeping those players that you just got from an expansion is vital to keeping your live service game afloat. How do you think Fortnite has been around for so fucking long now? We all thought it was gonna die off. But because every new season, a lot of players come in, but it has little updates and stuff, and creators themselves will, go in and make their own maps and stuff. But the more players you retain, the more likely they're going to spend. I mean, that's just how it is. Why do you think, all these gotcha games, they make so much money because they loop you in with, good looking characters or whatever, and then they have sort of grindy activities? Why do you think Genshin never lets you skip the fucking dialogue? They want you to sit there and kind of debate on it. It's like, should I buy some more of this currency to get this character or something like that? And if people are spending a bunch of time in Destiny 2, they're gonna be like, maybe I do want this cosmetic early. Oh, maybe since I got this armor piece, but I don't have enough of this item, maybe I'll just get an Arcentui template. You know, the more time, like, imagine you're going to a gift shop. Also, I do apologize, it's a longer video, but imagine this is a gift shop, right? Imagine Destiny 2 is that gift shop, right? And you as a player are the customer. If their player retention rate's really low, you're just gonna walk in, glance around, and leave. You're not probably thinking about buying anything, right? But no, you spend a little bit of time there, you might like, even if your main goal is not there to buy something, I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. You know what? Maybe I'll just drop a couple bucks on there. Maybe I'll get a souvenir. Oh, spend a little bit more time in there. You're more likely to buy more things. So that helps keep a live service game alive. That being said, will it solely keep a game afloat? No. However, will it help massively? Yes. And Final Shape is not that big of a success. As you can see, back in May before Final Shape came out, we were, 70s, 80s, 90s, 80s, 90s, 70s, right? And then, Final Shape happens, bam. You know, 314,000 concurrent players, and it only went downhill. And then, we're literally in the 50s. We're in the 50s. And, you can see the last 30 days, we have giant bonuses. But look at how much fucking red there is sometimes. And the reds are always in like the 20s. And here, holy shit, you have 50. But yeah, you really only have two instances where you're in the 100K average players. You have June, which is when Final Shape came out, and then you have March of last year. But in between that, you can see it kind of dip. You can see it dip a little bit. So it's kind of insane that we're kind of in the same player retention rate just when we had the seasonal model. And even then, you can argue we had even more concurrent players when we had the seasonal model. Seasonal model and the episodic model are not the changes are not making enough of a difference. We do need a Destiny 3. We need something completely fresh. We need something fresh. We've been looking at the same game for 10 years. We need something fresh. And this is where we get into some other games here. You know? And Jesus, 24-hour peak being 63, damn. We want to look at Warframe. Warframe, in my opinion, is the game that I don't necessarily think it competes with Destiny 2, but it's a live service game that, from what I've seen from the Warframe community likes their game. Likes their game. We're looking at the same time period, 3 months. I don't know when Warframe's last expansion came out, but we'll look at a year because we have to have hit an expansion at some point. We'll look at a year comparatively for each one. Holy shit, that's a graph and a half. A year. If it's too wavy for both of them, Destiny 2, definitely not that spiky, but on average, Destiny 2 is a more popular game than Warframe. It just is how it is. But you have that spike down, back down. Just very steadily, decently low, then spike back down. Warframe is weird. You have this climb, then you have this spike down, then spike down, which I don't know what. Somebody Warframe that plays Warframe, can y'all explain to me what's happening here? What's happened here? I'm assuming this dip happened because of Final Shape. Destiny 2, because the games are pretty well close together. Then people left Final Shape. You can see June 17th here. And then you can see June 17th, started the decline. And then I'm assuming here was from First Descendant. I'm assuming. Y'all can let me know, Warframe players, what that means. But as you can see, that curve, for being that long, being that high, is kind of crazy considering, I will say their numbers are bigger, but you can tell when the lows are lows and then it spikes. As you can see, it's consistent considering their player base. Dwell time peak is a third of the time lower. It's about half the time lower, and their 24-hour peak is only 10K lower. Like, are you kidding me? Then if we want to look at First Descendant, which First Descendant, obviously, I don't think has really been enough time to really stand the test of time, in my opinion. So it's kind of one of those situations, but you can see steady. Oh, this is all, so keep in mind this game has not been out that long. I believe this only actually shows July 4th. Yeah, as you can see, it hasn't stabilized enough because it's barely been out a month. But as you can see, it is on a little bit of a decline. That's natural. It's natural. It's natural. If it's keep going though, what will you see? See First Descendant failing. That's what you will see. Warframe is still going strong, but Destiny 2, as you can see, they had an expansion here. They had a fucking expansion here, which is wild to me. Final Shape, despite with how much people want to praise Final Shape, your expansion is not that good if you can't retain the players after the expansion, and you are a live service game. All time is a little bit funky. As you can see, this plateau here, January 2023. That was light. That was just before Lightfall. I'm pretty sure. This was just before Lightfall. Lightfall did have a pretty. This mystery season of the Seraphim kind of plateaued, and again here you can kind of see January, February seems to be a stable month for Destiny 2 because those are, I believe, those used to be expansion times at one point, at least kind of close to it. Because Witch Queen came out in February, which as you can see it dipped, just dipped. That's something I want to point out. Now another game that I do want to point out here is Honkai Impact Third. This game, to my knowledge, is the most fucking stable I have seen a player base be towards a game and have positive feelings towards the game. I will say this community doesn't really get enough attention, honestly. It is a mobile game that's also on PC now. Um, Made by the same people as Genshin, Star Rail, and Xenolis. However, this is the first. This is the first game. This game is fucking old. It's old. I would argue it's probably almost. I think it's almost as old as Destiny because I think I remember seeing it at some point in time. Eh, Actually, okay. So after double checking, this game is actually older than Destiny 2. Honkai Impact Third came out in 2016. Well, actually, it's older than Destiny 2. It's not older than Destiny as a franchise, but it's older than Destiny 2. Destiny 2 came out in 2017. This game came out in 2016. However, that was on mobile and didn't come out on PC until later. But it's kind of crazy that the numbers have. It did dip. It did dip in the past year. Again, some things to keep in mind here is you do have like you have Final Shape in here. For this, you had some other stuff. You had to run the 2 expansion too, which is another thing about. Then here you've had like shit like First Ascendant as well come out. You also had their new game Xenolis come out as well, so that's something to mention as well. So that is something to note. So as you can see though, fucking steady in this period of time. Steady in a year's time. In the past month, it's been a little wonky. We'll look into the 3 months, as you can see, it's been a little bit low. They recently had released a part 2 thing, which hasn't been doing as well. I personally don't like their part 2 necessarily, but as you can see, before they released it, steady as a rock. Steady as a rock. First Ascendant, steady decline. Warframe, steady as a rock, then you decline. Destiny 2, what does it do? In 3 months? Oh, this is we'll go to a year. Steady low, and then you have a spike back to steady low. In relation to their player base. As you can see, it's high here. That's a little wonky. No, there. So yeah, I just wanted to point out some stuff about because a lot of people want to say the Final Shape was a massive success. Short term, yes, but the issue is long term. No, it's a failure. It's a long term failure because we are back to where we started in terms of player counts. I myself am just not playing Destiny 2 as much. I don't know a bunch of people that just kind of aren't feeling Destiny 2 anymore. It's kind of lost its magic at this point. I will say it's interesting that they're focusing on Marathon Destiny 2. I think they do need to focus on Destiny 2, but I think they need to start wrapping it up. I think Frontier should basically be the end of Destiny 2, kind of how Rise of Iron was for Destiny 1. Then they need to come out with Destiny 3. In my opinion, they just do. It's unfortunate for the raids that recently got reprised, but at this point, we need a fresh start. We just do. Um, Now, I don't, as someone that kind of plays Destiny has kind of done it for a long time. I legitimately don't know where to go from here. I'm slightly worried for Destiny 2's future, looking at the numbers and everything, and looking how we are basically back at the same point we were before Final Shape. Nothing has changed. Player counts are not higher. If anything, they're slightly lower than before Final Shape, and it's just a little worrying. And especially think about that gift shop analogy. It's not going to become better. It just isn't. We do need a Destiny 3. Do I think it's going to come soon? No. I do think that if First Descendant is successful, if the dungeons, the hard dungeons or whatever thing that they're making, if it slaps, I think that's what a lot of these games have been missing, a massive endgame activity. I think Destiny 2 could be in actual trouble. I think it could be in actual legitimate trouble. Solstice of Heroes has not fucking started. Still. Still. And we're almost to October. Like, we literally have 2 months until October, which should be Festival of the Lost, and we still have not seen Solstice of Heroes. Like, at this point, just don't fucking do it. At this point, we have no news about an upcoming raid, which gives me no motivation to really do any activities. The dungeons aren't enough to pull me since none of the dungeon weapons are craftable, really. Or enhanceable, so there's not much of a fucking point. But the numbers prove my point. Alright, so now, this is I've slept on it. With the part that y'all just saw was me talking about things last night and my thoughts on everything. So I still hold that Destiny 2 Final Shape was not a success. The numbers for like your player retention is the most important thing. Your expansions gives you that big money boost, but that player retention is going to keep you stable. Again, it's like my gift shop analogy. Now, again, this does not excuse, let me repeat this, does not excuse how the upper management has been fucking handling things. That's absolutely ridiculous. Not enough resources were put into Destiny 2. It feels like upper management just got all that money and was like, oh, we can work on this now, we can work on this now, we can work on this, we can work on this now, while being completely blind to the state that Destiny 2 was in. Destiny 2 has been going downhill since Witch Queen. Beyond Light was the last full year that was absolutely fantastic. Even though Season of the Hunt was dog shit, I'll hold to that. Season of the Hunt was dog shit. But yeah, Season of the Chosen, which was really good. It's still the only time since I've been playing that we've gotten a strike outside of an expansion. Yeah, Season of the Splicer, which was cool. You had this season, you had the 30th anniversary, you had so much stuff. And then Witch Queen happened, and then the seasons got worse, like worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And it seems like they were completely blind to that. And I'm sorry, but if you only have one moneymaker, you need to put more resources to get that moneymaker until you release another game out the door. And this goes for this only doesn't apply if you do single player games. Like Santa Monica Studios, and I mean they're under Sony, but they don't have to release a game after game to keep afloat. id Software does not have to release a Doom game, the second, another. They don't have to release them super back to back to back to back to back. They can have a little bit of a gap. But as a Bungie, you only have one fucking game. You have to keep the game alive, at least until they release Marathon. That's just simple business common sense. What I blame the most here is upper management. Upper management is dog shit, and trust me, if you have been in the workforce at all, as a manager and like that, and not necessarily for more of a corporate business-esque. For example, I work at a gas station, but that gas station is owned by a bigger company, and since I am a manager, I kind of interact with like area leaders and that sort of thing. I'm not the manager, but I'm just there all the fucking time, so I just happen to, do a lot of stuff there. And just so happens I know more than my own fucking manager. But sometimes, like, upper management completely fucks people lower on the totem pole. And that's probably what's been fucking happening. Do I think P. Parsons should step down? I don't know enough about the company as a whole. That being said, a lot of the car stuff things are a little sketchy looking. But again, I can't say much about that. Now, another point of why Sony might not be the best person to take over. By the way, background gameplay doesn't really matter, so y'all can just listen to this. But Sony might not be the best people to take over. Sony has quite a bad habit of completely abandoning projects, like completely abandoning properties, and like when I mean abandoning, I mean like nothing. And um, they're quite stingy. For example, Bloodborne. Bloodborne is in the top 20 for most sales for a PlayStation property. As I believe it's number 11 currently. Nothing has been done with it. It is approaching its 10-year anniversary. That being said, just a quick side note. I do know that there are some like whispers of it being in the works, but it not being ready. Um, and being perfectly honest, if it is true, I would much more rather it take longer and be well put together than just being rushed out the door. Which I will say Sony is really good at quality control. Like, you don't hear very often about like specific PlayStation games releasing super buggy. I mean, like Spider-Man 2 released very solid, Stellar Blade released very solid, you know. And God of War released very solidly. You know, they have a little bit more quality control than some other studios. Suicide Squad. But, and honestly, First Descendant as well. Because the shit was stuttery as hell, my PC could not run it. But, you know, they do have a habit, and also, yes, I do know about the Kai Cenat thing with Bloodborne. I don't plan on doing anything with that, you know. It's cool. However, I'm a little bit worried for his sake because going from Elden Ring to Bloodborne was the hardest transition for me personally, and none of the skills that you learn in Elden Ring transfer over to Bloodborne at all. Some of the skills from Dark Souls might, but Elden Ring teaches you nothing about the rest of the Soul series really that could transfer over well, because the bosses are so the builds are so varied and the bosses are so varied that it doesn't exactly apply. I wish him the best. He's going to struggle at Father Gascoigne. He's going to massively struggle at Father Gascoigne. The bosses I think are going to be the biggest problem is Gascoigne and possibly Lawrence the First Vicar and maybe Orphan of Cause. But if he decides to do this DLC and everything, which he should. But associating as again, Bloodborne, they haven't done shit with Ghost of Tsushima. Nothing, like absolutely nothing. They just kind of reference it in other properties, and there's just, and I gotta be honest, God of War Ragnarok was not as good as 2016. It just wasn't. 2016 to me felt way more solid, a lot more put together, and Ragnarok felt like it had too much shit going on, and the story wasn't, in my opinion, was not as good. I didn't like it as much. But however, Spider-Man 2 was really good in my opinion, really good. And what would probably happen if Sony were to take over is they've already kind of formulated a new studio within, like took in some a bunch of people and said, hey, we're going to make a new studio that you're going to work for us, basically. I would assume they do know that Destiny 2 is lightning in the bottle. So what would probably happen if Marathon is far enough along, they will probably ship that out the door, or maybe like might extend the release date. And Destiny 2, they would focus mostly on Destiny 2 because they know they know they have something special with Destiny 2, and they would probably focus more on that. That being said, do I know if they would listen to the players or anything like that? I don't know. Now, other news. Back to Bloodborne stuff. I'm gonna disrupt this bubble right now. Bluepoint is not working on Bloodborne. They are not. They're working on their own game, which they've been working on since they were working on the Demon Souls remake. This might be good, it might be bad at the same time. Because from what I've seen and heard, Demon Souls remake is quite a little bit of a hot topic because they changed a lot of the music and stuff, and that's not something you can do for Bloodborne. out of any game that can get a remake or a remaster, Bloodborne is the one where you cannot change the music. You can't. Dark Souls, you might be able to change some of the music, but like Dark Souls 1, you can't change the music either. In my opinion, Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne are the two games that if they get an actual remake, you cannot change the music whatsoever. You can't. The music has too much meaning for the bosses and shit for you to be changing shit. And a lot of people have played those two games. Not a ton of people have played Demon Souls, so the changes were fine. So that's something I was a little bit worried about. But Blue Point is not making Bloodborne. So I'm gonna disrupt that bubble right now. In terms of what's coming for the channel, right? What do we got cooking? Here soon, I will be uploading the last part for the Elden Ring Seamless Co-op DLC with Torchic here. Also, maybe I will be streaming some with another friend of mine. However, it won't just be the DLC, it'll be the base game too. I don't know if he has experienced all the optional bosses, so that might be something I discuss with him today. Since he just got a PC, I might help him set up his stream settings and how to get stuff working there. So that might be coming in the near future. It'll be a stream, not a video series. There will be no more videos on Elden Ring. None. If I do one, it will be a friend of mine, a different friend of mine, Psycho. If he has enough time, I get him Elden Ring and then show him all the new bosses. Might do like a quick little edit thing about that. But I'm probably done with Elden Ring. I have already recorded the first episode of Dark Souls 3. I've already recorded it. I am going to have to edit it together. I do want to build a little bit of a gap because I'm a little bit worried. I'm worried about two things for Dark Souls 3. Number one is the gap because the first two episodes will be fine, but once we get to like Abyss Watchers and beyond, it's going to be substantially longer for me to do those videos because I'm doing the lore section after every single boss, not every single boss, but after every single Lord of Cinder, and also I got to do area comparisons, and that has the biggest chunk of area comparisons, so I'm a little bit worried. But we're gonna try to make our way through. I know it's been a long time since I promised it, but yeah, I do have it recorded, and I'm gonna start really working on it. And I do have a camera, however, it's like 1080p, 30 FPS, so I'm gonna try to get a better one. Hopefully, I can in the coming weeks. But that's kind of what's going on for Souls games. Also, for Destiny 2. I'm not really going to be making any more build videos. There's just not enough interesting things, in my opinion, really, currently. There's just nothing interesting for me to build, really. And what kind of demotivated me as well was with the build of the week last week, the first one was... First off, it was a Warlock, but that's one thing, but I really wish they would have chosen a smaller creator. Like, no offense to Rest Assured, but they should have chosen a smaller creator, honestly. Even if it wasn't me, if it would have been someone smaller, I would have been much happier. I'd be like, okay, well, good, Bungie's, helping out the little guy, but no, they did not. And I was like, well, is what it is. And also, I'm not going to have the time to really be investing too much time into build crafting, especially with Dark Souls 3 and that whole shenanigans. So, also, if I can get a hold of... If I can get a couple people to agree, then I might do a Destiny 2 video fusing two different genres together, for a little idea. Hopefully that, works out. I really do hope, so... But, also... After Dark Souls 3 is done, I plan on, especially around the time that we go through the DLCs, is because I do plan on doing both DLCs at the end. I do not plan on doing. I plan on doing the DLCs one after the other, if I can. But I am curious to see how well Old Hunters and the Dark Souls 3's DLCs actually hold up. It's been a really long time since I've played the Dark Souls 3 DLCs, and it's been a little bit of time since I've done Old Hunters 2. So I think since I've been in the Elden Ring DLC twice, I think I need to go back through those two DLCs and really give it another go. And of course, if Bloodborne Remake or Remaster gets announced, I will definitely set up a day and a time to stream until I beat Bloodborne, all the way through, all bosses, no sleeping. That being said, should it take me like 24 hours to beat it? No. I would guess it would probably take me about, all bosses would probably take me about 12 or 15 hours? 12 or 15 hours? No challenge dungeons, no. Like, I mean, I'm not going through the challenge dungeons. So, it would be kind of a little bit of a speed run, maybe not to take that long, but yeah. I think that'd be something fun to do. And as we are heading into August, we're getting a little bit close to something, so I am going to announce it here. Let me know in the comments below. I plan on playing 1 or 2 horror games, maybe at the end of September, beginning of October, for, spooky season. I've never played a horror game before, so give me some recommendations in the comments. I will not be playing FNAF. That's not something I want to do. So don't be suggesting that shit. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Yeah, quite a lot of stuff going on. Quite a lot of stuff going on for me personally, and hopefully we can get more progress on the channel here soon. Again, 50 subs, I'll be telling the tale of my scariest experience, especially since we're close to spooky season. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in. Sorry about the long video, and I will catch y'all on the flip side.